All right, it's time to focus on our split view controller pattern. We haven't implemented a couple of things, so we've got a couple of problems going on here. First of all, notice what happens on an iPhone 8 Plus when I rotate from portrait to landscape. By default, iOS just takes the top scene, the top view controller, and splits it off to the right. And the other thing, I haven't implemented the pattern that does the detail mode item, or what do they call it? The detail mode button item in the upper left corner, so I can expand or show the master side or expand the detail side. Anyway, I haven't fully implemented my split view controller pattern, and plus I haven't handled this rotation problem. I don't want the scriptures on the right ever. I want a map on the right always. So let's get to work on that. Okay, first thing, I'm going to need a view controller class for this thing. And let's call that, let's see, that holds our map. Let's call it map view controller. So new file, Swift file, map view controller. And in there, let's import UI kit. Oops, kit class map view controller extends UI view controller. And we'll need our view did load. And so we always call super view did load. And then we can implement our little pattern. If let split VC equal split view controller. So if the split view controller property is not nil, then I can say split, sorry, not split, it's navigation item dot left item supplement back button equal true, and then navigation item dot, and what I want to do for the pattern here is set the left bar button item to be the split view controller's display mode button item. That guy right there. That's our little pattern on the detail side. And so now let's see, if I go to my storyboard here, let's change the identity of this class to the map view controller. There it is. And now if I run this, and I am in landscape mode, so it should launch landscape, then I'll see the display mode button item in the upper left corner of the detail view controller. So up it comes. There's that button, so I can toggle back and forth. Okay, great, but I still have this problem over here on the master side of saying, look, when I go to content and now I rotate, it still splits that out. Okay, the way we fix that is we go to our app delegate, and we're going to implement the split view controller delegate as we talked about in lecture today. So let's get rid of all the boilerplate code. I don't need any of that stuff. Okay, what we need to do is we need to say, hey, I would like to be the split view controller delegate. Okay, I'm just doing a little spacing here so that my lines wrap nicely. Okay, I'm saying I would like to be the split view controller delegate, and the way that we do that is we say, so now remember, this is the app delegate. It is not a UI view controller. So there is no split view controller property that will be nil or not nil. There just isn't one. So let's just say if let split view controller equals. Now what do I have? I have a window. So I go to my window and I'm going to force unwrap it. If I don't have a window, the app deserves to crash. But anyway, so that ought to be safe. And then it has a root view controller associated with it. So if I can cast that to a UI split view controller, then it's safe to say, well, I would like to be the delegate, please, for that split view controller. Me, I want to be the delegate. Now, if I compile this, I've got a problem. That is, it's saying, well, I can't assign that because you don't implement a UI split view controller delegate protocol. So let's tell it that we conform to the UI split view controller delegate protocol. And now it will compile. Okay, there are two questions we need to answer, and that is, what is the behavior when we rotate from landscape to portrait, and what is the behavior when we rotate from portrait to landscape? Now, the explanation for all of this is in the Day 20 lecture. So let me just show you the two methods that we're going to implement. The first one is collapse onto primary, this one right here. Okay, let's reformat this. Okay, split view controller collapse secondary view controller onto primary view controller. Primary is master, secondary is detail. What it's wanting to know is, look, do you want me to do the default behavior and just so collapse means we're going from portrait or from landscape back to portrait. We've got two visible. Now I've got to collapse them. So how do you want me to do that? Well, I want to do it like it's showing here. So when I return, so it's going to return true or false. If I return false, that means I haven't done anything to configure my master view controller. Would you please decide how you want to... Let's see, I think I'm saying that backwards. Go to the slides, and I've got it written there. By saying true, I'm saying I've handled this. And in fact, the way to read it, go to over here to the documentation. Open this in developer documentation, and you can read about it right here. Collapse secondary onto primary. Asks the delegate to adjust the primary view controller and to incorporate the secondary view controller into the collapsed interface. And then, as I read more about that, if I've handled it, if I've done that, then I return true. False to let the split view controller try to incorporate the secondary onto the collapsed interface. True to indicate that you do not want it to do that. So, all right, imagine I'm back in landscape, and what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing the map. If the map is over here, I don't want it to show up on my master side. At least I don't think so. I want it to... My focus is the scriptures. And so I want to see the scriptures here again. I want to... This is the view that I want to have when I come back into this mode. Anyway, all right, I've muddled that explanation. But the point is, I'm going to return true, saying, okay, I've done everything. Don't worry about pulling that map over here. If you return false instead, it would pull the map onto the master side and still show them the map. But I think the focus is the scriptures, and that's what I want to get to. So don't overlay the scriptures with the map. Just keep the master the way it is. Okay, that's the first question. The second question is, what do I do going from portrait to landscape? Now here, this is a more complicated one. I'm separating the secondary from the primary. And let's format this a little bit nicer. So I'm separating the secondary from the primary. I need to return a reference to the view controller that should be displayed in the detail area. And if I return nil, it will just do its default behavior, which is to grab the top one and put it on the right-hand side, which I don't want, unless the top one's the map. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remember the structure of my storyboard here. My primary, my master view controller, is this sequence of view controllers. Nav, volumes, books, maybe chapter list, and then the scriptures view controller. So I'm going to go through that list, and let's start by if let nav vc equals, and I've been passed a primary view controller. If I can cast that to UI navigation controller, then that's my master navigation controller. And now let's iterate over the controllers in there. For controller in navvc.viewControllers, let's go examine each one of them one by one to see, is my map already visible and I split it out, or is it not visible, so I have to create it programmatically. Now in order for this to work, I need to know which view controller is the one I'm interested in. So I'm going to go over here to this on the detail side now, the navigation controller. And in the identity inspector, I'm going to give it a storyboard ID. And I'm going to call this detail VC and click on use storyboard ID as restoration ID. Okay, and now I'm going to copy that over into my app delegate. I'm going to make a private struct storyboard static let map VC identifier. Let's see, that's enough for now. Okay, and what I will do over here is I'll say, look, if controller dot, and I can ask what its restoration identifier is. If that's equal to the one from the storyboard, that map VC identifier, then that's the one I want to display on the detail side. Let's return the reference to that and tell iOS, please display this for the view controller. Now if I go through all of the controllers and I never find that the user has gone to the map view controller, and that's not displaying on the master side, then what I need to do is I need to instantiate it. Now, in order to instantiate it, I need to have one more thing, and that is, okay, I need to know what my main storyboard name is, and that's just main, because look at my file, main.storyboard. Now what I can do is I can say, all right, look, let storyboard equal UI storyboard, and the constructor for that takes two parameters, a name and a bundle. The name is going to be what I just typed up above, storyboard.main storyboard name, and the bundle I'm just going to say nil and let it use its default bundle. Now when I have an instance to a UI storyboard object, I can now ask it to instantiate storyboard.instantiate. So here's instantiate view controller, or if it's the initial one, I know it's the initial one, I can say instantiate initial view controller, but I want instantiate view controller with identifier. Identifier being that one from the storyboard that we just used above. That's the map VC identifier. And now that's what I want to return, is that view controller. So what I've done here is I've said, look, if I can find the map view controller already on the main nav because they've already gone to the map, then go ahead and return that controller and use that for the detail side. Otherwise, let's instantiate a new fresh detail view controller to display. And if I run, launching project 3. Okay, so now in project 3 you'll probably have a button over here that will let you get to the map if there are geocoded places, like we have in verse 14 here of Euphrates and Assyria. But now so we did not have the map visible, but at least what happened was it said, oh, okay, let me instantiate you a new map VC identifier view controller over here, and I'll put that on the right, which, okay, let's go over here and add a label so that you can see that this is our map view controller. And we'll just set the property on that of the text being map goes here. And when I run this, let's launch in portrait mode. And I go to Genesis chapter 2, and now when I rotate, you see it's able to instantiate a view controller that does match this one over here. So I got the right one. I could even put a breakpoint in my app delegate if you'd like, and I can verify that it's getting to this point. So back to portrait, back to landscape, and there we go, it's hitting that breakpoint. So that's working. What if I said false instead of true here? Okay, picture's worth 1,000 words. Let's try this one. So we go to Genesis chapter 2. Now, because I said false instead of true, I expect map goes here on top. And yeah, that's indeed what it does. And if I hit back, there's Genesis, and now I go back the other direction and it creates the detail view controller again. But let's rotate back one more time. So if I'm already here, it's going to be able to find that view controller. Let me put a breakpoint right here. And now we rotate. And it hits that breakpoint because it found a controller with the right restoration identifier. So it knows, hey, I don't need to create a new one. Let's just use the one that we already have. Okay, so that's what's going on. We've now implemented the split view controller pattern. Both on the detail view controller side, we've told it about this mode button item, and we've taken care of this rotation in the iPhone Plus configuration, so it's going to happen properly.